Welcome. I bid you welcome, John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Gray, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world. This is a little bit of a spur of the moment kind of a video I wanted to throw together, and I gotta thank Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie, for coming up with this one. And he put this thing out here called the Holy Trinity Challenge 2025. So here's the simple rules. You can choose any band or artist, any genre. They have to have 5 albums or more, 5 or more studio albums. Let's make that clear. 5 or more studio albums. Choose 3 consecutive studio albums that are your favorites from the catalog. Okay. You cannot choose a live album or compilation, so that's right out. And they have to be released consecutively. So for me, if I was going to pick my 3 favorite Wasp albums, well, they're not consecutive. You know, those, Headless Children and Crimson Idol in the first album, well, those didn't come out back to back to back. Okay, so you can't. Now you could make the argument Headless Children, Crimson Isle, and Still Not Black Enough. Yeah, some might call that. So that's just an example. So I'm gonna give you 5 bands, all in the metal genre. The first band I'm gonna talk about, John the Music Nut and I have already done a series on this band. We spent about 4 or 5 months on them, roughly. I'm losing track of my time there. Um, So I'm not going to go into a lot of explanation on all these albums, but the first band, of course, is Accept. Um, I would pick Restless and Wild, Balls to the Wall, and Metal Heart. That would be my Holy Trinity for the band Accept. Some people might say Breaker, Restless and Wild, and Balls to the Wall. Some might say Balls to the Wall, Metal Heart, and Russian Roulette. Okay, so there's all kinds of ways you can go with this. Those 3 just happen to be my personal picks. The next band, this is a band that I really want to talk about and really would love to just. Actually, all 4 of the next 4 bands I'm going to talk about here are all bands I would love to be able to spend some time with in talking about. Um, their album series. So this first one is actually going to be a Christian metal band based out of Kentucky, and I'm talking about the brothers Thompson with the band Bride. Now, over the years, they had a various changes on drummers, bass players, co-lead and rhythm guitar players, but the Thompson brothers here, as you see here, um, Dale here in the forefront and Troy here in the back, they've been the constants all the way back to their early days when they were known as a band called Matrix. So my holy trinity for this band, I would go with this album here, Kinetic Faith. A lot of strong songs on here like Troubled Times, Hired Gun, a re-record of a classic song of theirs called Everybody Knows My Name, Kiss the Train, Sweet Louise. There's a lot of really solid tracks on this album. The next one would be this is probably one of their classic albums here, Snakes in the Playground. Um, absolute banger of an album right here. Um, Rattlesnake, Would You Die for Me, Psychedelic Super Jesus, I Miss the Rain, Love Money, Some Things Never Change, Goodbye. This is a solid album, start to finish. Absolutely banger of an album. And then the next one in that trilogy would be this one, Scarecrow Messiah. This album kind of gets that grunge feel in the song titles, where every song is one word only. But Beast, Murder, Scarecrow, Questions, Dad, Mom. This these 3 are a classic. You could also make the argument for them. Some people would like to go with maybe their first 3. Okay. Their first 3 albums were more like straight up heavy metal. Um, And then they kind of started going more towards a Guns N' Roses kind of sound, maybe with the Silence Is Madness album, and then they just kind of started morphing into all kinds of different genres. But Dale Thompson's voice excels through every album. There's a lot of good material here, but I would pick those three. Now, my next band that I'm going to quickly talk about. Now, here again, this is a band that you can argue there's a bunch of different trilogies you could go with here, or trinities that you could go with. Me personally, for me, with Fate's Warning, prog metal geniuses, I'm going to go with the Arch era, the John Arch era. So their debut here, Night on Brocken, followed by Spectre Within, and finally with the classic Awaken the Guardian. Me personally, this era is what I got into when I first started listening to Fate's Warning. When I first were introduced to Fate's Warning, this is what I heard. They they started off sounding more like a kind of a they had that Iron Maiden feel to it, but there was a lot of prog mixed in it. Um, Mike Portnoy has said that if Fates Warning never existed, Dream Theater would never have existed the way you would hear them now, or even in the 90s. But John Arch would leave the band, Ray Alder would come in. So some people could say, well, how about No Exit to Perfect Symmetry to Parallels? What about those three? Well, okay, I would go with those three too. Those are all classic as well. Some may say maybe some of the later releases. Um, Again, there's really no wrong answer. It's just that's just what I listen to, and that's tends sometimes that tends to be more of what I reach for. Don't get me wrong, I love the Ray Alder era, because since he is still the current singer, um, I just tend to reach for that early stuff more. Just my preference. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, next band. Here again, I think most people will agree with this one. Uh, for another band of brothers, that's had a couple different drummers over the years. I think a lot of people would definitely agree with me on this one. If you're gonna go with Raven, then you got to go with this Holy Trinity right here. Rock Until You Drop, Wiped Out, All for One. I would not disagree with that. You cannot go wrong with these three albums. I saw them perform Wiped Out in its entirety, and it was amazing. Uh, you but that first album, there's so many classics on that. All for One, classic, start to finish. You cannot deny the Gallagher brothers, John and Mark, Rob Wacko Hunter on these albums. Mike Hillen now is the current drummer. Um, you Maybe some people like the middle era. Maybe they want to go for Nothing Exceeds Like Success to Architect Fear to Glow. Okay, maybe some people would want to pick Extermination to Metal City to All Hell's Breaking Loose. Those are three amazing albums. Again, I personally love Raven. I think the world of them. Um, Great band. You, but in my opinion, you can't go wrong with these three. Last band I'm going to talk about. Um, when I saw these guys in 1985 opening up for Motley Crue, they absolutely wiped the stage with them. And the weird part was, I wasn't even aware at the time that Thunder in the East from Loudness was not their first album. No, they had four albums and a live album prior to that. So let's take a look at. I'm going to get rid of these Obi strips here for a second. Let's take a look at these. So their debut album here, The Birthday Eve, okay, followed by Devil Soldier, and lastly, The Law of Devil's Land. Now you're probably saying, man, with titles like Devil Soldier and Law of Devil's Land, that's more like the Unholy Trinity. But um, I'll tell you something. There are so many hooks on all three of these albums. And not only that, you got Akira Takasaki for God's sakes. Come on. Akira Takasaki is one of the most underrated guitar players out there, in my opinion. He just didn't get that notice that he so richly deserved. And yet Loudness has since put out an immense catalog. They've got like 20 something, at least 20 something studio albums. Okay, yeah, maybe some of them, yeah, I've heard some from some people say, yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that's a lot of ugh. But from just some of the stuff that I've heard a little bit in between, say the Mike Vicera era to their current stuff, some of it, okay, maybe a little recycled, but for God's sakes, you still got Akira Takasaki. Amazing guitar player. Absolutely amazing guitar player. Um, One thing I will say about these albums, all of them are sung in Japanese. You have a little bit of English lyrics coming through with these. Um, the first album here, the Birthday Eve, like songs like Street Woman and To Be Demon, Rock Shock, Sexy Woman, great tracks. Um, on the Devil Soldier, of course, the title track, Lonely Player, great track. Let's see, Hard Workin', Rock the Nation. I think also amazing songs here. This is probably my favorite of the three, Law of Devil's Land. In the Mirror, Show Me the Way, Wish You Were Here. Mr. Yes Man is a great track. I love the feel of that. Law of Devil's Land, and of course the barn burner, Speed, that closes the album off with Akira just going wacky at the end of the song. But so there you go. Those are five bands that I would say this would be your Holy Trinity. Three albums consecutively released. Hopefully, bands at some point I would love to talk about. That's a lot of work ahead of me though. Especially like Loudness. I mean, that's got like 20 something albums. Raven's got about 10 or 12, 14, something like that. Fate's Warning's got a number of albums. Bride's got a number of albums, but um they're all amazing bands, and I highly recommend you check them out. So there you go. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Gray, the Metal Dad from my music corner of the world. I hope you like this little Holy Trinity thing. What are some bands that you would list in your Holy Trinity of three bands of three albums consecutively released, no live albums, no compilations? That's your challenge. See what you come up with. We'll rock forever, y'all. See you soon.